Hello, I'm Frost, and welcome to my guide on the early access version of Industries of Titan. So, Industries of Titan came out in early access in mid-April 2020, and it was a bit of a surprise. I mentioned it in my sci-fi gaming news a number of times, and it was going to be released in 2019, then 2020, then it was delayed to 2021. So I said I was going to start talking about it, and then out of nowhere, it came out in early access. And I think this is a very, very good thing. It is very, very promising, which is why I decided to make this guide to kind of give you an introduction to the game. So what is the game? Well, it is a city building game set on the moon of Saturn, Titan. And what is unusual about this particular moon is that there was an ancient civilization there. And if I zoom out on my map, there we go. You can see that there's all these buildings that have been left over from a previous civilization, and these ruins can be extracted for various resources, which allows you to build up your empire. Now, you've been allocated a region of Titan by the council, and you then have to make use of all the land around you in order to be able to expand and also take out rebel camps, which we'll come on to in a little while. Now, there are two main views to Industries of Titan. There is this view, the city view, and then there is the building view. So the city view allows you, first of all, to see all of the area around you. You can also see these ruins, which you can, first of all, survey. So these little ticks mean that they've been surveyed. And if I click on it, you can see down here on the bottom right corner, it will then show the resources that I have available to me in these ruins, and it can be minerals, isotopes, there can be waste, and there can be artifacts, and we'll cover all of the various elements in a minute. Now, the other thing you can do is obviously you can place down buildings and infrastructure. So I'm just checking my notes as well as I'm talking to make sure I don't forget anything. So moving on from that, let's look at the resources. So the resources are at the top here. So we have credits. Now, credits are used to do things like unlock buildings and to repair buildings and to do something called burrow, which I'll mention in a minute. So, for example, right now we have a factory, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a new factory. I'm going to pop that down, and you can see that I need minerals and isotopes. So let's pop that there, and that you can see from all the lines going across that I have an energy grid in place, which we'll also cover in a sec. But let's get the building underway because that's going to take a little while to build. And I could be talking while that's happening. So we have our credits, and as you can see, that allows us to build our factory. We then have minerals and isotopes, which are also required for the building. So I should be clear, the credits are to purchase the structure or to purchase the blueprints, and then the minerals and isotopes are actually used to build. Minerals more so. Minerals are more for building. Isotopes are especially important for upgrading the buildings. And then over here we have waste. And waste is produced by your citizens as well as your various factories and other elements within your map. And then all the way over to the left here, we also have these things called influence points, which are built up passively, but you can then also add extra, which is, to be exact, you get one every 15 seconds, but that can be increased by building structures that please the council, which then gives you more influence points for the council. And I'll show you where we spend those in a minute. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to look inside a factory, and let me see how a factory is doing. So I've got 22 seconds before my factory is built. So what we're going to do is we're going to go inside that factory, and I'm going to show you all the various components that you can use in order to make your everything operational. And we've got 11 seconds to go, so I'm going to count that down. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. And to speed these up, we've jumped along a little bit in time so I can enter straight into the factory, which I'm going to do now. And as you can see, this is our factory floor, and we can upgrade our factory to go up to 3 floors. And I'm going to show you all the various elements. So the very first thing is we have a fuel fabricator, and I can use a key to rotate this around and place it on my floor. There we go. Now, a fuel fabricator does not require any energy. It basically powers itself, and then we get fuel tanks we can put in. There we go. We can pop 2 of those down, and they basically allow me to store any excess fuel that I'm not using at the moment. So that covers our fuel. So we've got fuel coming in. Then we'll get this down the bottom here is we have logistics. So we have our storage containers, which come in various sizes. So we've got a small, a medium, and a large. And once again, these require no power. and we have these waste receptacles which allow us to collect the waste until such a time that we build a smokestack that will then allow us to destroy all that waste and get rid of it. So we've got fuel, but we need to turn it into energy, and for that we need something called an energy generator. So here's an energy generator, and we're going to pop that down, let's say right here. Okay, and the energy generator will then produce electricity or energy, and it requires fuel in order to operate. Now at the moment the fuel just magically moves from your fuel tanks or from your fuel fabricator straight into your energy generator. In future updates there will be a pipe system, but for now it just magically moves. And then what we can do is we can add some batteries as well. So let's pop some batteries in there so we can store our excess energy that we're producing. Now we need to actually be able to make use of that, and for that we have our energy relays. So we're going to pop an energy relay down, and you can see that once it becomes connected, which is the green area, you get a little line zapping backwards and forwards. And now anything that's in contact with those green squares will then be powered, and I don't have to worry, like I said, about my fuel fabricator because it doesn't require it. So what we're going to do is we're going to offset it a little bit. There we go, we're going to pop it right there. And now what we're going to also add is an industrial outlet. Now the industrial outlet is like a conduit, and what this will do excuse me, is it will allow you to move energy from inside the building to other floors and also to outside of the building. So on every floor you need to have one of these industrial outlets connected to your energy relay, and we're going to pop that down right there. So that's all going to be built now, and what we have now is the ability to power all the things that are going to make a difference. And what we need is we need citizens, and then those citizens then need to become converted into employees, and we also need to earn money from our employees, from our citizens. So the first thing we need to do is give somewhere for our citizens to live. Make sure I don't get my two mixed up. There we go. And so we can plop down 2 habitat pods at a time. Or sorry, you can have 1 habitat pod for 2 citizens. There we go. So I can now support an extra 4 citizens once those are built. And then we need to earn money from these citizens. And what we have here is a monetization system. And this station generates credits quickly by hiring adult citizens to watch ads. So essentially it's a YouTube station. So we pop that down and they can watch YouTube all day long, and we can generate revenue from the ads. That's if you're monetized. I'm not quite there yet, but not far now, not far. So there you go. So we're going to pop a couple of those down, and as you can see I'm making sure they're connected to my green squares. So there we go. And then what we need are conversion capsules. Now these conversion capsules, let me pop one just right there for now. Now the conversion capsule allows you to convert an employee into a citizen. Once an employee becomes a citizen, he then becomes a indentured laborer that works you 24/7 without stop. So they are highly efficient, and all these chaps running around with all these boxes at the moment, they are your employees, and they're busy constructing for me, and they're doing a very fine job of it. They're getting along very quickly. So now that this conversion capsule is now built, what I can then do is I can then convert an employee into a citizen. Now you can see I need this thing called an artifact, and at the moment I don't have any. That's that big 0 up in the top left hand corner. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we can go and get some artifacts. Now the way we get an artifact is, if you remember, we had our ruins. If we go to these ruins and look at these ruins, you can see that this one has 2 artifacts in it. This one over here has no artifacts, and this one has 4. And what I'm going to do is I am now going to claim that land using those influence points that I mentioned earlier. And that's going to take 30 influence points to claim. Now that I've claimed it, I now have the option to either salvage, and then in which case I get the minerals and isotopes and the waste, or I can get the artifacts. So in this case I need the artifacts more, and so I'm going to extract. And what's going to happen now is one of my little chaps are going to come along and extract those resources, and then they will be dropped in boxes and collected by more employees later on and added to my stack that is up here. So that kind of covers everything within the buildings. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cover the city view. Now the city view, you have the opportunity to build structures which essentially do everything that you can do in a factory. So just before I go with the factories, one thing I want to mention is that we can actually connect factories that once they both have 3 floors, or they have the same number of floors, we can then connect them together. And that gives you additional bonuses. But be aware that you can't burrow. Now, burrow is something that every now and again we're going to get attacked by these rebel camps, and they're going to send in ships. And if a building has been connected, it can't be burrowed underground. So you can have the option of spending all of your credits to hide all your buildings. So that is kind of a little game mechanic that's very unique to Industries of Titan. And we'll come on more to the rebel camps in a sec when we talk about the defense. So buildings. Main thing is that everything that we can do inside the factory, we can build outside the factory. So for example, we have an energy plant, which is the same as our energy production inside the factory. We have an energy pylon, which is the same as your energy relays. You have a fuel turbine, which is the same as your fuel inside the building. Your fuel silo is the same as your fuel tanks. And then if I have used 1200 credits, I can get the blueprint for an energy depot, which is the same as the batteries. And the same applies to population. We've got residential, which is the same as your habitat pods, and your conversion centers, which is the same as your conversion capsules, but just can do more at a time. So the way that it works with Industries of Titan is you start very much within the building, and then once you expand, you work much more in a city view, building dedicated buildings for specific tasks. Now, what we're going to also cover is that we have mines. Now, mines, I have a mine over here because you have these things called nodes. You have mineral nodes and isotope nodes, and you can use a mine to extract those resources, and it's a constant extraction process. Now, one thing that should be added to with the buildings is that all of the buildings require employees to run them. So this is another reason why you have to build up your employees. So for example, if I take my smokestack here, you can see I currently have 3 employees assigned. It's like its maximum level. And the more employees you assign, then the more useful that building becomes. So let's move that out, and we can see our pollution levels down here as well. Our pollution levels affect our citizens, which we'll come on to when we do the citizen menu. So then we come on to military buildings. So the first one is the defensive turret. So these defensive turrets, let me turn off my overlays here, make sure, let's turn it, there we go, that's a little bit better. So our military turrets are these ones right here, and you can see their area of effect. So what happens is that every now and again you'll be attacked by the rebel camps, and they will send in ships, and those ships will fire down at your structures and try and destroy your structures. The more defensive turrets you have, and obviously you want overlapping fire and all that kind of good stuff, the faster you destroy the enemies, the less damage is done, the less you have to spend on repairs. Now these rebel camps, you get rid of them by basically claiming their territory. So you can see here there was a rebel shipyard, and if I click on my territory claimed, you can see I claimed their territory and drove them out. And you have to basically work your way through all the camps and expand in order to be able to find those camps. So you can see there's one right here that I need to expand into, and then you can then claim it. Now, how do you expand? You expand by using command centers. So these command centers, I have one here, basically create an area of influence, which I can click on down here, which is the area that's bordered with this yellow line. So anything within the yellow line, I can survey, I can claim, and then I can, once I've claimed it, I can then build upon it. So I've got an energy pylon here, for example, that you can see I'm trying to extend into here so that I can build another command center closer to be able to then claim that land. Now at the moment it's not actually connected because I put it a little bit further out, and the reason why I did that is so that I can then upgrade it, and then once it's upgraded it will extend and then connect to the rest of my grid network. And that pretty much covers the building, so it gives you an idea of how everything works on this city view. And then I'm going to scroll down my notes. Oh yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to cover very quickly. The other thing as well within the buildings, I'm just going to mention, I can't remember if I mentioned it, is that down the bottom here we have some extra things that are greyed out that are going to be coming later. So conveyor belts clearly demonstrates that we're going to have to move resources manually. At the moment, resources are just automatically grabbed from buildings. That's going to change. And then we have the refiner, the centrifuge, and the purifier. And this shows that things like minerals and isotopes will become a 2-stage process, and there'll be a whole refining level of complexity that's going to be added as well. So returning back to our city, we're going to go to our control interfaces. So how do we get these citizens? So our citizens are listed here. You can see at the moment I've got 37 of them, and I have enough living space for 67. So I need to acquire some more. And the way we do this is with off-world migrations. And off-world migrations is ships that are constantly passing through. So you can see that I've got some arriving in a few seconds, some arriving in a few minutes. And I can spend influence points to buy whatever's available on those ships. Now that can be either new citizens, or it can also be resources like minerals and isotopes. And we'll see that literally in 10 seconds time. This one will become available, and then I have the option to purchase using these influence points. Now, if I'm short on influence points, we can get those from the council. So there we go. So this one, the ship from Earth, I can only buy minerals and isotopes, but there are no potential citizens for me to buy. But the next one, which is coming from Luna, there we go, has 4 citizens, and that's going to cost me 8 influence points. And there we go. So now those citizens, are going to become mine. Now, if I'm short on influence points, I can actually donate minerals and isotopes to the council and exchange them. Or I can do it the other way around. If I've got too many influence points and I desperately need, for example, isotopes, and I don't have enough funds to claim the sector, then I can just request those, and you can do a certain amount per number of turns. So that kind of wraps it up for the influence and for that menu. And then we have our employee management. So our employee management, as you can see, there is a prioritization list here. So as at the moment, you can see I've got loads of cleanup waste jobs. So I've got that as the top of my priority. But for example, if I go into a big construction overdrive and I need loads of energy very quickly, I can then move up my construction right up to the very top. And then, well, it's now been built, but if it hadn't been built, then that would have assigned people straight away to it. And so therefore you can prioritize tasks, which adds another level of management to the game. And as you can see, my area of influence is now stretching out into this homeless camp. So I can now try and claim this territory. And that pretty much wraps it up for how the game works. I hope that was clear enough. What we're going to do now is we're just going to drop out to the main menu. And the reason why I want to show you the main menu is so that we can see the roadmap. Now, I'm not going to list all of these out and talk all through these. You can see them very clearly yourself. But you can see lots and lots of stuff is going to be added over the next year or so. Obviously, the big one is going to be the Combat 2.0, which is listed here on the left, ship construction and ship-to-ship combat. That's going to add a lot to the game. I think at the moment it's kind of lacking in that respect. It's very, very straightforward, and it needs a level of complexity, and I think that will add to it, as will the population simulation. But from what I can see, is the good news is that by this early access, things are going to be added, pretty quickly, rather than having to wait months for updates. And talking of updates, down here there's a link for view patch notes, and since the game was released, I believe it's April 14th, give or take a day, there have been 15 patches applied to the game in literally just over 2 weeks. So, sorry, yeah, 15 patches, that's correct. So it's almost every day, every other day, there's new changes being made. So you know that the development on this game is very, very active, which is very heartwarming for an early access game, and it's great to see. Also, there's a link to the forums, which then shows you all the known issues, so you know whether you need to actually announce any bugs to them that you may find, because there are bugs. And so that's very, very handy. And you can talk to the developers through the forums, and they also have a Discord as well. So they're very, very active developers, which is great to see. And hopefully this is going to develop into a really good, fully fleshed out game. But it is off to a promising start. And yeah, I'm quite excited to see where this goes. So that brings this to an end. I hope you enjoyed. Please like if you do. You can dislike as well. That's okay. And please leave comments. I'm always interested to hear what you have to say. And I do reply to a vast majority of my comments. And please subscribe, because I do release on a regular basis. And I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers at the time of doing this video. So it'd be good to hit that 1,000. And finally, hit the bell icon, because you will need notifications, because I do release on a regular basis all about sci-fi gaming. Hope you found that useful. I hope you enjoyed it. Until the next one, thank you very much. Bye for now. Bye.